welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurs of Fuego. We're documenting the journey of incredible entrepreneurs. My new best friend, John Bekiou. How are you?
Fantastic.
John, I tell you, man, I've been looking forward to talking to you all week because you are changing the world. Fair?
Fair.
It's a fair statement. You are with Global Solutions Collective. Tell us a little bit more about the company.
Global Solutions Collective is a group of companies. It works at the forefront of international business development. And what we do is we bring together and merge technologies uniquely to meet clients' or nations' needs. We do this in a way that addresses the high demand for food, water, electricity, and security. And by doing so, we really impact nations economically.
Give me an example, for instance.
Okay.
Your latest project. Let's
We have a project that we're working on in Africa. And one of the nations in Africa has invited us. We're going to build a model community. The community itself is a small town. And it's a sustainable agricultural community. And what this community entails is, well, first of all, we have access to all the natural resources in the area, which are pretty much limited. But what we do is we bring our technologies to bear and allow for the community to build out with a core, a center, which includes housing, education, training, a medical clinic or a health facility. And the entire rest of the community is farm and ag community that surrounds it. It can be as large as 2,500 hectares.
And you are building that. You're building the agricultural.
We build the actual communities.
The actual community. Okay.
We build them, we grow them, and we bring all the local communities to bear. Any of the towns or any of the individuals that are in the general area can come, utilize the community, grow in the community, get educated, get technical training, and really give them an opportunity to grow out of whatever conditions they are currently in.
And John, when I said that you are changing the world, this is precisely what I'm talking about, because you are changing somebody's present and thus their future of not just one individual, just at a community at large.
Yeah, I like to use the analogy of if you don't have any oxygen right now, all you think about is oxygen.
Right.
But that's often the problem in poor nations as well. People are thinking on a daily basis, where am I getting my clean water? Where am I getting my food from?
That's their main worry of the day.
Yeah, so if you focus just on that, how are you ever going to prosper? So in order to prosper, if we can help people meet those basic needs and then give them access to technology, electricity, and some basic housing, it's amazing how people can educate and self-educate now with the internet as well, of course, right?
Well, it was kind of what Maslow was right? I mean, if you get Maslow's theory, and you just have to take care of these basic needs first, and then you can start going up the chain and education and self-fulfillment, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what you're doing. Do you work, of course, in partnership with these countries in which you go to?
Yes, very much so.
And do you get resistance politically from some of these countries?
The political question. Well, yes, we do need to obviously talk to government and work with government. That's a key. But the real focus ultimately is to get on the ground and work from the ground up. So fortunately, a lot of nations that are in need are really open to our program. And I think that it'll be something you'll see over the next 5 to 10 years, how it'll really start impacting GDPs in a lot of nations.
Of course. And so how do you scale this, John? How do you scale it to where let me put it this way, what is the ultimate mission of the organization, and how do you scale it to get to
That's an excellent question. Peace initiatives through sustainable agricultural communities is the ultimate goal. And what the communities allow a country to do is, for example, one of the countries we're looking at, they import 95% of what they eat. So if they can grow what they need within a nation, and then beyond that, be able to start trading across borders,
Sure.
It creates peace initiatives, because everybody needs food and clean water, ultimately. And we don't think about it here much, but there's an impact here even from Africa. There's over $300 billion of economic growth that's actually caused in the U.S. by companies that work in Africa.
And is most of your work in Africa, or is it on the other underdeveloped countries?
We work in North America, South America, as well as India. We're moving into Asia now as well as Africa.
And the reason that I asked the political question is because, more of a geopolitical question, because, I mean, in Africa, for instance, depending on the region, you have the Hutus and the Tutsis who have hated each other forever. And if one particular group were to have your work benefited them instead of the other group, is there that type of political rivalry, if you will, that may hinder your mission?
That's an excellent question. No, there isn't, because what we do is we work with the local communities. We're very culturally sensitive. The individuals who work in the communities are actually locals, and that's the most important part, that we integrate that. And we follow their practices. We don't go against their historic practices in any way. I mean, if they've been farming there for 2,000 years, we're not about to come in and tell them how to farm, right?
Correct.
But if we can introduce technologies that are simple enough to improve their farming practices, right there, it's something that they adapt to.
There was a great movie called The Guts Must Be Crazy.
Yes.
If you remember that movie. And a part of it is that when we bring new technologies into an environment that, like you said, for thousands of years, they have done their agriculture, they have a modus vivendi, if you will, that they're used to. Do you find that your being in that environment perhaps maybe damages a little bit of the ecosystem?
No, not at all. It does the opposite. It improves the ecosystem, because it allows not only the actual development of areas that are not being utilized, but it also draws more people into the areas to utilize the land and really, again, grow and create some economic impact on an individual basis as well as a national basis.
John, one would say, this is beautiful, what you're doing, and terrific work, changing the world. Why not do it in the United States? Or are you doing something here in the United States?
Well, we, at this scale with communities, we are not. But if we look back historically, that's where this program developed. Our founder, Richard Abernathy, who you had the opportunity to interview a while back, yes.
You bet.
He grew up in farm communities and saw how co-ops came and really supported communities. And he's the visionary that originally started the Sustainable Ag Community Development Programs. So it's been something that we've been doing here in the U.S. for a century, if not longer. And just taking that same simple process and implementing it worldwide. Because now, let's face it, the co-ops now are controlled with conglomerates and international corporations, and it's very different now.
Right.
So we can just go back to that basic systemic type of nucleus that really helps the communities grow.
There are some countries and some communities, particularly in Uruguay or in Paraguay, where the large conglomerates would probably have a lot of resistance, particularly Monsanto, for instance, that control all the agriculture in Uruguay and all the production. And somebody like you would come in to form a community. I can see the economic and political resistance that you can get. So your job is not easy.
Well, fortunately, because we're really striving to create a legacy of peace initiative here, a company like that wouldn't be wise for them to really resist publicly what we're doing. And our impact ultimately is an impact that grows. So everybody's looking for good practices, even the big players.
And the skeptical mind, John, would say, all right, that's all good. What do you want? What do you want with us? What do you want in return?
As a company?
As a company. What do you want in return?
Look, we're all suffering the same problem, I guess you could say, that's coming up. We're all in a situation where within the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to start feeling the impact and the need for more ag, more water, cleaner water.
And climate change
is
not helping at all, because it's real.
Yeah, exactly. So now, I mean, you don't think about it now because you turn on your tap and
Correct.
It's there. So if we don't do something now long term and think long term, there's going to be a crisis upon us. And I'm not sure if I'm answering the question here, or if I...
No, you are. And to find somebody that truly wants to change the world, as your organization does, again, from the skeptical mind, right? I mean, you're like, well, what do they want? Why do you want to do that?
There's a lot of NGOs and foundations and funds
Sure.
that are already spending billions of dollars in
Right.
Africa alone,
Right.
for example. The problem is often that they don't have a good return on what they put in. They get 20% back on what they've invested in. And a lot of the communities and the locals there, they are very open to anybody bringing something in. Oh yes, please do, bring it in. But the sustainability is always the problem. What happens when the company or the foundation or the fund or the NGO is no longer there supporting them? Then typically everything goes back to the way it was.
Wow.
To some degree. So by bringing the locals into the community, they actually build up and learn the practices of sustainable agriculture. And that becomes a part of the next generation, which leads to the sustainability over time.
You are looking down 70, 100 years from today. That's your vision, and that's amazing. I mean, that to me, it really breaks. It's hard to imagine tomorrow what I'm going to do, but you're planning for the next 75, 100 years.
Yeah,
That's what a
well,
community
yeah,
should,
absolutely.
and beyond, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think about sometimes how maybe some of these communities will become large cities eventually. Who knows? I mean, there's huge,
Right.
there's huge impact. And one of the things we do we start a model community, and that model community actually webs out to other communities as they develop over other areas. So they'll blanket eventually an area or a country, and again work cross-border. So
Fascinating stuff, John Bekiou, my new best friend. You're changing the world, man. I am like, my respect. I mean, Global Solutions Collective. John Bekiou has been our guest. Thank you so much, man.
thank you.
We're out.